Let me ask you a question. And I want you to answer it honestly, not for me, not for the person sitting next to you, but for yourself. Are you tired? Not physically tired, not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep fixes. I mean deeply, profoundly, soul tired. The kind of tired that shows up on a Monday morning when the alarm goes off and somewhere in your chest something whispers, "Is this it? Is this really all there is?" If you've ever felt that you are not broken, you are not weak, you are not ungrateful, you are simply a person who has been chasing the wrong destination on the right journey. You've been running hard toward goals that were handed to you by a world that never asked what you were built for. Goals designed by comparison, by expectation, by fear. And here's the truth most people are afraid to say out loud. You can achieve every single one of those goals and still feel completely empty inside. Because success without purpose is just a beautifully decorated cage. Pause, let it land. But today we change that. Today, we stop running toward what the world applauds and start walking with bold, deliberate, faith-filled steps toward what you were created to accomplish. Key point 1, the borrowed life. The first thing I need you to understand, and this may sting a little, is that most people are living borrowed lives. They borrowed their definition of success from their parents. They borrowed their career from a guidance counselor who spent 20 minutes with them at 17 years old. They borrowed their identity from a social media feed curated by strangers. And then they wonder why, at 40 years old, standing in the middle of everything they thought they wanted, they feel like a stranger in their own life. There is a study out of Harvard, one of the longest studies on adult human happiness ever conducted, that ran for over 80 years. 80 years, tracking hundreds of people from all walks of life. And you know what they found? That the single greatest predictor of a flourishing, fulfilling life was not wealth, not fame, not achievement, it was meaning. A sense that your life mattered, that what you did connected to something larger than yourself. Meaning is not found. Meaning is not stumbled upon at a motivational conference or downloaded from a podcast. Meaning is revealed when you get quiet enough, honest enough, and humble enough to ask the only one who knew you before you were formed. What did you make me for? Stop living the borrowed life. The rent is too high and it will never feel like home. Key point 2, purpose is fuel that never runs dry. Now I want to talk to you about fuel. There are 2 kinds of fuel a human being can run on. The first kind is external fuel: approval, money, applause, comparison, fear of failure. This fuel burns hot and it burns fast. It gets you off the line fast. It makes you look impressive at the start. But external fuel has a fundamental design flaw. It requires constant refilling. The moment the crowd stops applauding, you stop moving. The moment the money slows down, the motivation slows down. The moment someone else outperforms you, you start to question whether the race was worth running at all. But there is a second kind of fuel. And this fuel is different. It burns steadily. It burns quietly. It doesn't need the crowd. It doesn't need the camera. It doesn't need a leaderboard. This fuel is internal. It is spiritual. It is the kind of fire that was placed inside you before you ever took your first breath. You want a real-world example? Think about a teacher, not the kind of teacher who teaches because they couldn't find something better, but the kind of teacher who was born to teach. The kind who stays after school for 2 extra hours because a child is struggling. The kind who spends their own money on classroom supplies. The kind who 30 years later still cries at graduation because they understand, they have always understood, that this, right here, is exactly what they were made to do. No bonus check produced that. No performance review created that dedication. That is purpose fuel, and it does not run out. When you are aligned with your God-given assignment, you don't get burned out, you get fired up. Every obstacle becomes evidence that you're on the right path. Every setback becomes a setup. Every NO becomes the fuel that makes the YES taste sweeter. Voice drops intimate, leaning in. I've met people with every external advantage, resources, connections, talent who were utterly exhausted. And I've met people with almost nothing, living in small communities, doing quiet work that the world may never celebrate, who radiantly, absolutely, unmistakably alive. The difference was not circumstance. The difference was calling. Key point 3, the 3-step framework. Your God-given assignment now, let me give you something practical. Because inspiration without direction is just emotion, and emotion fades. What we need is a framework, a 3-step framework to identify your God-given assignment and pursue it with total conviction. Step 1, listen to what breaks your heart. Purpose almost always lives close to pain. Not your personal suffering, though that matters too, but the suffering you cannot walk past. What is it that, when you see it, something in you rises up and says, someone needs to fix this. Someone needs to do something about this. Because here's the secret. That fire in your chest is not random. That is the fingerprint of your assignment. The problems that infuriate you the most are often the problems you were specifically designed to solve. Pay attention to what breaks your heart. It is trying to tell you something. Step 2. Examine your unexplained abilities. You have gifts that feel effortless to you but miraculous to others. Things you do naturally, fluently, without thinking that other people would have to work years to replicate. Often, we dismiss these gifts precisely because they come so easily. We think, if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. But that is a lie. What feels like breathing to you might be a lifeline to someone else. Ask yourself, what do I do that makes time disappear? What do people consistently come to me for? What would I do without being asked, without being paid, simply because something in me compels it? That is your raw material. Step 3, align it with your faith. Purpose without faith is ambition. Purpose with faith is assignment. There is a difference between building something for yourself and building something with divine backing. When you bring your gifts, your passions, and your heart into alignment with what God is doing in the world, when you stop asking, what do I want, and start asking, what am I needed for? The universe responds differently. Doors open that no human hand could open. Resources arrive from directions that make no logical sense. And the peace, the unexplainable. Irrational peace that settles in your chest in the middle of the storm, that peace is confirmation that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Pause! Listen, examine. Align, that is the framework. 3 steps, not 5 years of therapy. Not a $20,000 mastermind retreat. 3 honest, humble, courageous steps toward the life you were already built for. Key point 4, the courage to risk the comfortable here is where most people stop. Not because they don't hear the calling. They hear it. They hear it every morning in the quiet before the day begins. They hear it in the middle of meetings that don't matter. They hear it in that whisper that says, you were made for more than this. They stop because of fear, and not just any fear. The sophisticated, socially acceptable, perfectly reasonable fear of losing what they have already built. Let me tell you about a man, a highly educated professional, respected in his field, earning money that made his parents proud and his neighbors envious. By every visible measure, he had arrived. But at night, alone, he knew. He knew he had exchanged his assignment for his comfort. He knew every day he stayed in that comfortable life, he was not living, he was managing. One day, he made a decision that terrified everyone who loved him. He walked away from the certain life to pursue the called life. It cost him. It cost him relationships and income and the approval of people he respected. But 3 years later, the impact of his work had touched tens of thousands of lives. And he said something I will never forget. He said, the hardest part wasn't the risk. The hardest part was accepting that I deserved to live the life I was created for. You deserve to live the life you were created for. Let that sit. Comfort is not the enemy of greatness because it is pleasant. Comfort is the enemy of greatness because it is convincing. It tells you, stay here, it's safe here. You've worked so hard to get here, don't risk it. But faith, real, audacious, obedient faith says something different. Faith says, what is on the other side of this fear is greater than everything you are clinging to. Faith says, I was not made to be safe. I was made to be significant. Faith says, I will take the step even though I cannot see the whole staircase. And here is what the risk takers discover, almost without exception. The moment you take that first brave step toward your God-given purpose, the moment you say yes to the assignment instead of yes to the applause, the provision follows. Not always immediately, not always abundantly, but faithfully, precisely, in exactly the measure you need. Step out. Key point 5, your purpose is not just for you. The last thing I need you to hear, and this is perhaps the most important thing I will say today, is this. Your purpose is not just for you. We live in a culture that has turned purpose into a personal lifestyle brand. We've made it about self-actualization, about fulfillment, about becoming the best version of yourself. And while those things matter, they are not the point. They are the byproduct. The point is impact. The point is that there are people, real people, with names, with faces, with stories, who are waiting on the other side of your obedience. Think about that. Somewhere in this world, maybe in your city, maybe in your neighborhood, maybe in your own family, there is a person whose breakthrough is locked behind your breakthrough. There is a child whose future depends on the mentor you have not yet become. There is a community whose healing depends on the leader you have not yet stepped into. There is a generation that is hungry for the voice you have not yet found the courage to use. When you choose not to pursue your purpose, when fear wins, when comfort wins, when comparison wins, you don't just lose. They lose. The unnamed people who needed what only you carry, they lose. Frederick Douglass once said that he preferred to stand in the storm with a faithful few than in the comfort of safety with the many. That is the heartbeat of purpose. It is not self-serving. It is self-giving. It is the decision to say, my life is not just mine. It was given to me so that I could give it away. Voice rises full conviction. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not a random collection of biology and circumstance spinning through a meaningless universe. You were thought about before you were made. You were assigned before you arrived. You carry something in you that this world desperately needs, and the world has been waiting, patiently and painfully, for you to believe that enough to act on it. Close the call to action, so here is where we land. You have a choice to make. Not tomorrow, not after the next promotion or the next season, or when your kids are older, or when the timing is finally right. Right now, today, in this moment, you can walk out of here and return to the borrowed life. You can go back to the goals that were handed to you, the path that was paved by other people's expectations, the version of yourself that was built to impress rather than to impact. You can choose the safe lane, and the world will applaud you for it. It will call you responsible and wise and practical. And deep in the quiet place where only you and God exist, you will know the truth. That from this day forward, you will stop asking, what does the world want from me? And start asking, what did my Creator place me here to do? You can do the work of listening to what breaks your heart. You can do the work of examining the gifts that feel like breathing to you but look like miracles to everyone else. You can do the work of aligning your ambitions, your time, your energy with the divine assignment that was placed inside you before you took your first breath.
Quiet.
Slow, each word deliberate. The world doesn't need more successful people. The world is full of successful people who are secretly falling apart. What the world needs, what your family needs, what your community needs, what this generation desperately needs are people who are alive. Fully, completely, unapologetically alive in the thing they were created to do. Be that person. Not someday. Not eventually. Not when the conditions are perfect and the fear is gone and everyone around you finally understands. Now. Full voice, commanding and warm, your purpose is not a privilege reserved for the extraordinary few. It is your birthright. It has been waiting for you with unimaginable patience. And today, the waiting is over. You know what you were made for. Deep down, beneath the noise and the doubt and the years of living for everyone else's approval, you know. You have always known. Now go. Walk toward it. Run toward it if you have to. And when the fear tries to call you back, and it will try, let it know. You are not running from something. You are running toward someone who already has the finish line ready. The assignment is real. The grace is sufficient. The time is now. Go live the life you were made for.